And so, welcome back for part two of week six. This time, turning to Tuchman's stages of team development. This is a very important topic because, as a manager that transforms, you want to be in control, right? And without understanding Tuchman's stages, we tend to just think that things are going along and it was a little rough, and there are phases your team will go through every single time. So Tuckman back in the 60s developed this model, and his original model had four stages of development: forming, storming, norming, and performing. It was later in his revisions that he added a fifth stage called adjourning or adjourning. If you say adjourning, it rhymes: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Otherwise, it doesn't rhyme, but forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Now, uh, so this is essential to a good manager that transforms. So team development takes time. That's message one. And frequently, stage team development follows these recognizable stages. The team is on a journey from being a group of strangers to becoming a united team with a common goal. And then that mix can get shaken up when a new team member enters or a team member departs the group. And so, according to Bruce Tuchman, who developed this, uh, in both group dynamics and these stages, he was able to popularize this forming, storming, norming, and performing. Again, later he added adjourning. And so and managers have to retain the motivation of team members in order to successfully overcome the challenges of storming and norming stages, for example, right? So already you're hit with, okay, what am I going to do about it? Well, you need to consider motivation. In storming, you would want to consider conflict management, right? Things like that. When you get to norming, it's good. How do you get them to high performing, which is your ultimate goal? So the forming stage represents the beginning. That's kind of the honeymoon period. There are great expectations shared from all of the team members, and now relationships are developed and the purpose is becoming clear, and your ground rules, remember we mentioned the team charter before, ground rules are being established. And then, bam, the storming stage is triggered. Doesn't always happen like that, like a light switch or a thunderclap. But the storming stage is triggered once these team members start jostling for position. Right? Sometimes they're stumbling from confusion based on a lack of clarity of roles and responsibilities, or a lack of clarity on timelines, or the ground rules, or the clear purpose for which they're established, right? Sometimes they have arguments with leadership. Sometimes they'll have arguments with each other over technical competencies as they further complicate the background to try and understand the strategy and the goals. So, this is actually in forming and storming when team leadership and management is imperative, right? For you to succeed, you must keep this team motivated and addressing all of the concerns while clarifying the purpose and the goals. Now, once the storming stage is overcome, the team is ready to establish open communications. They become stable in their positions and in the norms. This is really the norming phase. Trust is finally being gained, is one of your indicators here. And when the trust account is high, right, you've developed this bank of trust with your team. When the trust account is high, communication becomes easy. It becomes sometimes instant. It always becomes effective, right? And these are really in norming the first steps toward cohesiveness. And once we've established cohesiveness, once that's achieved, teams will move hopefully from norming to performing and subsequently to this high performing, which is our real goal in the process. Now, this video, Fellowship of the Ring, is on your backup resources, right? So go on to Moodle week 6 and click on the Fellowship of the Ring. It really does tie in neatly. Somebody built Tuchman stages of team development around the meeting in the Fellowship of the Ring. It's really good. So I'm going to send you there for that. Now, this is really just kind of a recap, but a little more detail for you as managers. Stage 1, as I mentioned, is forming, and it's characterized by keeping ideas simple, saying acceptable things, avoiding controversy, avoiding serious topics. If feelings are shared, keep feedback at this point to a minimum, right? Avoid full disclosure at this point. And so here's how you can help the team in the forming stage as a manager that transforms. You can make sure the team writes their own team charter. That will help them with expectation management, conflict management. And that team charter should also state the mission statement and the goals for the team. You want to make sure that you've established boundaries and expectations. We talked about stakeholder expectations earlier. You want to select non-conflict tasks to work towards for the larger group early on, just to get them into a rhythm, okay, into a balance of achieving. We call it early wins or early successes, right? And so you want to help them know what to expect and to communicate and to reassure. Now, the next phase that Tuchman talks about is storming. Storming is characterized by strong viewpoints, and sometimes they're both right. If you have two technically competent people, they can have strong viewpoints that lead to conflict. They're not necessarily wrong, but the question is, how does that integrate into the mission and goals of the team? And frankly, you as the manager that transforms, sense of risk. Okay, so in this stage, other characteristics are that ideas are challenged. When ideas are challenged, sometimes poor listening skills come out. So be aware of that. Look for that. You can use good communication models to resolve that. It's a learning opportunity because people in this stage are challenging authority, and some team members in this environment withdraw. So look for that, right? Which will lead to a lack of collaboration. For others, it'll manifest itself in a competition for control. And there's a lot of defensive-ness here, a lot of defending going on. So as a manager that transforms, you want to make sure you communicate, and probably over-communicate. No surprises for your team. Accept this tension as normal. Let them work through it at lower levels if it's not impacting your team performance or other social norms that you've agreed to, respect, dignity, those sort of things. Acknowledge people's accomplishments early on. That will help steer you out of storming. Value diversity, right? Also in storming, gather information and be supportive. For example, sometimes storming happens because there are conflicts in roles. And maybe it's because the manager didn't define the roles accurately. I refer back to the red bead experiment from W. Edward Deming, right? What is the manager failed to do? Right? And so gather some information, be supportive, and maybe update the roles and responsibilities. And then, of course, lead and model example and behavior in meetings, okay, along the way. Stage 3 gets to norming. It also is centered around a number of characteristics that will help you recognize when you've arrived. Active listening is now happening with the team. There's a growing sense of shared leadership and responsibility. So we are at a point where we, in general, respect others' ideas and we're receptive to them. We're listening, right? Part of that, back to that active listening, which then results in active participation. And when I have active listening, reception to others' ideas, active participation, what I have then is an open exchange of ideas, which is innovative. And now conflicts, which are still going to happen, just because we're out of storming doesn't mean conflicts don't happen. But now conflicts are resolved in terms of a win-win instead of back in storming, it was win-lose, right? And so as a manager that transforms, you want to recognize how members are really alike, right? We're human beings with goals and desires and wanting to be here, right? We can help them by offering training that meets their needs and the team goals as well. We may encourage them to feel comfortable with each other and comfortable with the systems that they are working on. And we want to help the group stay focused as managers that transform on the main goal. Don't take your eye off the ball, right? As you work towards the last major area that I want to talk about, which is stage 4 performing, often referred to as high performing teams. This is where you want to get the team to. So a high performing team is characterized by creativity, a high level of creativity. There's an openness and trust that you can almost feel with the group. That leads to a shared leadership and strong relationships between each other. There are these feelings of warmth towards other members and acceptance of different views. Frankly, this leads to resources being pooled, achieving more than expected. We call that synergy. Man, we are firing. And you, as the manager that transforms, largely at that point, mentor, coach, and guide, right? And so as the leader, we should ask for critical self-assessment. And we should look for ways to challenge the team, don't let them get bored, and to develop them and encourage them to be open to new team members' ideas always. Realize that no matter what stage you're in, you can fall backwards, okay? Just because you're past storming and into high performing doesn't mean you can't fall back into norming or storming, right? And so you want to make sure that you're on top of your team and you're aware of Tuchman stages so that you can keep steering them to and then maintaining this performing or high performing approach. Okay, that's it for this week. See you online. I look forward to correspondence.